Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Joseph Jude, Chief Technology Officer of Net Solutions. I've spent decades helping brands build cutting edge digital experiences. Today, we are here to talk about something every product leader cares about building something people actually want. But here's the catch most products fail, not because they aren't built well, but because no one wants them. I have a battle scar to prove it. In an earlier avatar, I built a cybersecurity product that had awesome features, but it failed in the market. How can product leaders avoid this fate? Can Gen AI help us in any way? Today, we are going to explore how we can use Gen AI to accelerate product differentiation without falling into those common traps. And to help us do that, we have Soumya Bhatnagar. Soumya is a Forbes 30 Under 30 alum, Stevie Gold Entrepreneur of the Year, and recognized among the 50 most powerful women in tech. As co-founder and CPO at Involve AI, her data-driven leadership combines software expertise and NLP. She holds an MS in computer science from UC Santa Cruz, and her thought leadership extends to advocacy for women in tech, championing diversity, and inspiring the next generation of tech leaders. All right, Soumya, let's get into it.
Hi,
Why
Joseph.
does product discovery needs a 10x upgrade in the first place? And how is Gen AI changing the game?
Yeah, this is a topic I can talk about forever, I feel. But I think product discovery definitely needs a 10x upgrade. And there are a few pillars of reasons why. The first one you've already hinted at that, a lot of the products fail due to bad product market fit. And product market fit is not a one and done thing. Because if that were true, we would have still had yellow taxi cabs. We would have had Blockbuster instead of, Netflix. And, we would have still been shopping at stores instead of Amazon. So the market is so continuously changing and now at an even faster pace that you need more than just, humans. You need like this 10x, sidekick to be able to help you continuously evaluate the market and continuously evaluate the fit of your product in that market. And I would go like a step further. It's not about product market fit anymore. It's about deep product market fit, which means that your product actually fits, what the market needs, but also you know how to sell it. You know the distribution channels where your users actually buy, because at the end of the day, the reason we build a business is to have it viable and to have revenue. So distribution channels and trying to understand how to get to your users is equally important in the realm of product. So that is number one. The second that, I have always felt a pinch for, and I'm sure you have as well, which is traditional discovery just takes too long and it actually follows the train of thought of the loudest person in the room. There is always a bias there, and the person, who, like, if there's a person who's been burnt with a certain kind of feature or a certain way we're offering the product, we tend to steer clear of it because the person goes like, no, I tried this before, this doesn't work. So there's always this bias that comes into traditional discovery because at the end of the day, it becomes an amalgamation of opinions of people. So that in itself, I think, becomes a barrier. Forget about how much time it takes. And then, essentially it becomes a moving target. By the time you have quote unquote discovered, the market's kind of moved forward anyway. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was structured discovery. Even though it adds a little bit of process and you have a blueprint to it, it is time and resources intensive. Like as your product will scale, as the number of products and the number of offerings you add to your, initial offerings, as they increase, the number of resources to continuously discover keeps going up. And then the time proportionally increases as well. So we need to find a way where it is efficient despite the number of products and despite the number of problems and despite the number of sprints you're running at a time. You should still be able to, discover appropriately because again, if you find the right solution to the wrong problem, you will still come up with the wrong solution. So product discovery is so fundamental to be able to solve for the right problem in the right manner. So that's where I feel Gen AI comes in and kind of just changes the game for us in product, and makes us like 10x product people, but also people who are doing the creative work instead of the manual grunt work. So that's kind of why the long-winded way of why product discovery needs a 10x upgrade. And I'd love to talk about this even further, about what I'm going to talk about in this webinar. We're going to talk about 4 key components, which I think fuel our AI product discovery process. So I'm going to dive first into user research and pain point analysis. I cannot emphasize enough that the right solution to the wrong problem phenomenon is far more common than we see. So finding the right problem, ideating and prototyping, how do we quickly brainstorm, how we quickly come up with product ideas without, anybody coming out with, like you said, battle scars from that meeting room. How do we figure that out? Rapid MVP and testing. Again, testing for the market and testing how the user reacts to your solution is equally important. How do we do that really quickly? And then how do we make those quick market adjustments? Again, nothing in product ever, Gen AI or not, will be a one and done process. It is a continuously iterative process. And I feel the more you iterate and the more you fail fast, the better products you create. So, how do we get to that market adjustment? How do we get to that no from the market quickly so that we can iterate and build the next aha product? So that's kind of the journey we're going to take for the next, hour or so. So I wanted to start with, again, the AI-powered rapid user research. Let's start with, figuring out how to get the data first. So what goes wrong in traditional user research? And I feel like a lot of people on this webinar are going to feel the pain of what I'm talking about, which is the first pain in itself is conducting user interviews and surveys. You are trying to find people, which takes a long time, especially in a B2B environment. Even in B2C, it's extremely hard because nobody wants to spend 5 minutes. They'd rather finish watching Squid Games instead. So, it's really hard. But how do you get enough users? And by enough, I mean some enough users of statistical significance so that if enough people say something, you can say, okay, this is a good data set from which we can draw certain conclusions, as opposed to 4 people saying it out of like 80,000 users that you have. How do you find those users, conduct those user interviews and surveys? How do you transcribe those responses? Because those take forever. There is person taking the interview's bias that always infuses into each interview. Everybody's wearing different colored lenses and they come out with different solutions. A lot of the times, the outcomes align with the person who's interviewing their expectations as opposed to reality. So that always ends up happening. And then somebody sorts through that qualitative data, like the support tickets and the feedback and the NPS scores. And you have a large user base, like high five, but that's all the more data you're sifting through. And then how do we identify those patterns and trends, which takes forever? And a lot of the times I feel are not of statistical significance. You just find coincidences and you say, hey, this is what we should be solving for. And then again, like, how do we synthesize that, make it actionable takeaways, actually be able to prove to stakeholders that this is something of significance, because again, I feel stakeholders respond much better to product when you have data-driven information as opposed to just theories. And a lot of the times, because of these challenges, product tends to rely on theories. They tend to rely on, the recency bias. I had a call with one customer who said this feature doesn't work, so that's what we're going to fix, because that was the most recent negative experience we had. So all of that combined makes for, I want to say, terrible user research. it's very biased, takes a lot of time, and I feel ends in heartache because you've put so much blood, sweat, and tears into it, and a lot of the times comes out to nothing. So the goal of AI is how do we compress weeks and a lot of times months of work into a few weeks or hours, depending upon how long it originally took you. And how do we do it in an unbiased manner with strong correlations and statistical significance? Um, so let's start from the beginning because it's a great place to start. To be able to start getting all your data in one place, the first thing that AI can help you with is creating strong data pipelines. And by that, I mean, how do you funnel all the information that is in disparate sources in your organization, probably under different departments? A support team handles their data, and customer success team handles their data, and engineering handles their data, where which APIs are failing, and which product is not getting used as much. So you have all of this disparate information. The first thing that AI can give product is leverage to be able to get all of this data in one place, because that is the most, like, AI is again garbage in, garbage out. The stronger and more nuanced data you would give AI, the stronger your outcomes would be. So the first thing that it's able to do is put all of this information together. Things like, and again, depending upon your business, it can go all the way from like product reviews on Amazon or App Store, to support tickets. If you're B2B specially, support tickets become a very, very important fundamental part, and intercom responses. And user-generated content. I feel like the one case study that I read was brands like Sephora rely a lot on user-generated content and which products are doing well in the market versus not, because people are not just talking about that on forums, but on things like Reddit and Instagram, and there are like all of these YouTube videos of people reviewing their content. So things like that. And of course, your NPS surveys and feedbacks and, how customer success is interacting with them. So there is so much data to put in one place. And I love tools like Zapier, which actually help connect so many different sources together to be able to get one big corpus of data that you can start evaluating together, and start processing it. And then now I think all the buzz, I feel the internet is kind of exploding with the concept of MCPs, model context protocols, which essentially is a way of easily connecting AI to any tool that you want. And start funneling that information. So Salesforce has their MCP now, and Zapier has their MCP now. And literally, you need to Google the tool that you want to connect and say MCP, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find it. So a little bit, if you're slightly technical and you love vibe coding that JJ and I were talking about the other day, I think it's a really good project to start with as well. So um, getting tactical information with this automated ingestion is your stepping stone to everything else that you will do, which is why I'm spending so much time on it. If this foundation is shaky, you won't be able to accomplish anything else. So setting up automated ingestion pipelines, there are a lot of tools out there like Pensieve and Product Board that are product specific that can help you accomplish that if you're not looking for adding another tool. And you can just use OpenAI's like GPT to kind of start extracting information, or any LLM that you're interested in, and start like questioning it. But first things first, let's get all of our data together. Because I kind of covered a lot of this in the previous slide, I'm going to quickly go over this. But once you have all of your data together, that is where AI truly shines. We don't have to go all fancy and start using k-means clustering and everything else. Gen AI is more than enough. You need to just prompt it to say, hey, this is all of my data. What are the common themes that you're seeing in terms of like issues? What are the common frustrations you're seeing? Ask your questions in the most common way possible. But I always talk about how do we get to the negatives quicker? So instead of asking, hey, what do users like about my product, which is great, start with what do they dislike about the product? Where are the frustrations, continuous improvement? But again, you can extract keywords and themes, from it. You can figure out similar complaints, rank pain points, and that is, I think, where it shines. You can even prioritize problems. You can say, hey, this is my customer base. This is their general ARR, and you don't have to give an exact number. You can say high, medium, low if you care about a lot about privacy for your customers. You say, here are my customers. You can give a ID for them and say, here is my revenue for them. This is a high paying customer, medium paying customer, low paying customer. And according to them, here are all the problems. Here are their support tickets. You can actually have it rank the pain points by ARR, frequency, and any other considerations that you might have. You can actually give it, if for this quarter, for example, your CEO has said that, hey, retention numbers are very important to us, that is how you can rank and align your pain points. So it's extremely valuable for just Gen AI. You don't have to do anything fancy. Like OpenAI in itself becomes a gold mine here as you start going through it. So just a really interesting thing that I wanted to talk about was that the I can't find something to watch, like on Netflix, you know how they have the personalized recommendations because you watch Squid Games, you might want to watch Hunger Games and something like that. That actually surfaced because Netflix used this AI-driven clustering on their data. They started finding common complaints across the board, and they were like, okay, a lot of people are saying I can't find something to watch. And I think the term analysis paralysis came from there because there's so much information. It's very hard for us to comprehend. And it used to happen to me. I would sit for 20 minutes and just scroll through and not find anything, not because of anything else, because I couldn't commit my attention span long enough to one show. So yeah, they found that through AI-powered clustering and finding similar problems across user bases, and that drove them to build personalized recommendations. Okay. And then the last thing in user research, where again, the user interview summarization is, I feel a godsend, especially for me. And I'm sure like if used properly, it feels like, a genie is just dropping really, really amazing insights to you every day, especially if you create a blueprint for your team around it. But, not only does AI help with, you finding problems, but there's a new concept of synthetic interviews. So before you go out and try to find 400 people, you can get AI that is trained on every content available on the internet today to behave like your ICP, your ideal customer profile, or your persona. You can say, hey, you're a VP of sales, and I'm making just something up, VP of sales in an SMB, tech company, this is your revenue. And, here are the questions. I want to ask you these questions. So you can conduct these synthetic interviews first. And I remember JJ and I were talking the other day. The thing that he added to it is we can ask stupid questions as we want that we would feel a little embarrassed asking our users because we don't know enough about it. You can ask them about their day-to-day. You can ask them that, hey, when do you usually get on your first call in the morning? Because if it's a workflow tool, you want to figure out how it fits in their workflow. So you can ask at times even intrusive questions, but get a really good idea about your persona. So before we jump into user, when you actually then do human interviews, which we should always do, you come in a little more educated, you come in a little more aware, and you can ask more nuanced questions as opposed to like the basics that AI can cover. I love tools when we're talking to people. I love tools like Otter AI and Fathom to auto transcribe things. It just makes it so much easier. Instead of having to take notes, you can actually focus on users when you're talking to users. You can use Notion and Perplexity to generate summaries, not only for your stakeholders, but your team, because usually just one person is on an interview. So you can like pass along those summaries to everybody. And the fun fact is that Airbnb actually used these AI-driven user interviews to figure out that guests were worried about their safety. That's why they had the concept of verified not ghosts, hosts, and guest reviews. And they came up with this concept because it came through an AI-generated synthetic interview, and then they later talked to users about it, and they corroborated the story. Um, so yeah, start with synthetic interviews, start with getting the AI to pretend they're your ICP. And important disclaimer, you need to know your ICP really, really well. As the more nuanced you know who you're selling to, the exact person, and it doesn't have to be one, it can be 10 different personas. But you need to know that persona really well. What are their goals? What are their motivations? Why are they buying your product? What other things did they look at? You need to have all of this information, because the more you tell the AI to this information, the more it can be aligned to the person who will truly buy. So that's a little disclaimer. And then the last thing that I love doing in terms of this is running a prompt prototype test. And the reason, so it is kind of a little like back testing, if not anything else. So basically, you came up with a set of problems through user research that you think have wholesome water and you want to be able to evaluate. But it can be really good if you use AI and you say, hey, you are this kind of user, your problem statement is, you're trying to navigate the dashboard of a product that does so, and so. What problems might you come across? So basically, see if that outcome aligns with your user feedback. And a lot of the times it might not, because there might be a few more nuances. But this data not only helps you surface more problems that users might not be talking about, but also helps you corroborate if you are on the right track. I think there is always this secondary thing that you always need to second guess yourself in product. I always tell my team when they say, hey, I'm not sure. And I'm like, that's a really good thing to say, because now you will go out, get more data, and figure out if you were right or not. So this helps you figure out the I'm not sure, solution. And then Spotify ran this, and that's where they came up with their personalized mixes. Like based on your listening choices, they come up with new, personalized playlists for you. They ran it through a prompt prototype test, and then the Discover Weekly actually came to, for, and that's what I listen to all the time to discover new songs. So this is an extremely powerful full tool. And again, it's a muscle. It takes a little while to get this prompt truly correct. But once you start that prompt, just store it somewhere once you've actually finessed it. And that is going to serve you in leaps and bounds in the future. Okay, so after that long overview of user research, clearly, I'm very passionate about it. Um, you know, how to do it right, the 3 top things: make sure you feed as much data, if possible, as much structured data without losing the metadata, if I say, make sure that you introduce nuances. Validate. Please do not miss talking to users. Instead of 400, you might need to talk to 40 now, thanks to AI. But please don't skip this step. AI is not a substitute from talking to real humans. So validate it with real humans, and prioritize your problems based on impact. Whatever your priorities are within the company, or whatever your priorities are of what value you want to bring to the users, have a metric of impact and prioritize your problems based on it. We don't want to boil the ocean. We want to have a very laser focused approach.
Absolutely. Samya, all of this is fine. And I like that synthetic interviews that you can have now. And you are spot on that. And I have that kind of a conversation all the time.
Right.
Now, whatever you have said, let's keep it a little more real with say, for example, a hypothetical product owner creating a product for an e-commerce site,
Mm-hmm.
personalized buyer guide. So to create a personalized buyer guide. So they are buying I'm from India, so I'm talking about, say, for example, an Attenberg fan. It could be any other object as well. And then we are buying and then personalized buyer guide for that. How would the product owner use everything that you have already said to do that?
Right. The beauty of, I think, e-commerce is you have a lot of data. You have a lot of different types of data available. If you're on Shopify or any of those, they give their own data, but then Google Analytics gives a wealth of demographic information, times of access, times of conversion. So I think the first thing is make sure that you're measuring every single thing because we don't know what's important. So, you have to start with everything and start funneling it down. So, having that, and then helping using AI to define who is the most common buyer and why. So trying to get to, is it because what kind of, let's just say they're buying fans or something like that. So we talk about, hey, is this a college student? Are they buying like small table fans? Or is it that summer's around the corner and people's like fans are out of, commission, so they're trying to upgrade it before summer comes. So trying to understand each persona using the information that you have, AI can definitely help you with that. AI can help drive strong persona stories for you in this. And then again, you can talk to similar people. And the beauty in e-commerce is, especially in common products, everybody buys them. So getting access to users would be much easier, potential users and people who have bought both. And then of course the ratings can get a lot, you can get a lot of data out of that. So getting that information and driving strong persona stories. That is how you will create a personalized buyer guide where, you can have an end of summer sale or, having, focus on a beginning of summer sale or, back to school sale or something like that. And you can start focusing on that user's day to day with AI. And AI helps drive very strong customer stories that you can follow in creating that buyer's guide. And
Okay,
then again,
fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah, fantastic. Soumya, somebody has posted a question.
yeah.
Uh, Now, how can we use Gen AI in this particular phase that we are talking about?
Mhm.
How to identify the emerging trends before the competitor notices them, and so that our product is like have a leverage.
Yeah. I have two answers to that. The first is um, the power of Gen AI, everybody has access to it. So that is the negative of it. Like if we have it, everybody has OpenAI. So the how you would leverage it ahead of competitors is by creating continuous iteration cycles.
Hmm.
So what you would do, like for example, before Gen AI, I would update my product strategy once in 3 months, and I'm totally lying through my teeth because I was never able to do it. That was my ideal goal, and I would get to it once every 6 months. And that's when I would do a competitor analysis and a market analysis because it takes a month to be able to re-update or reevaluate your product strategy with Gen AI. But now with Gen AI, you can reevaluate it every quarter, or if you're a faster moving company, and every month. And it'll take you 20 minutes. So, what Gen AI you can infuse with Gen AI is continuous iterative cycles. Now it's not a matter of access, it's a matter of discipline and discipline only. So that is how you kind of win with Gen AI, that you get ahead in uh, discovery because you can have faster cycles. The most important thing is to create a blueprint. Don't do different things every time. Iterate on how you're going to do product discovery, how you're going to do competitor and market analysis, and have that blueprint available so that then everyone on your team is able to do it. So then you can have weekly or bi-weekly or monthly cycles to be able to update whatever you need to. That is where you will win against competitors.
One of
And
the
this,
thing that
yes,
one of the thing that I do is also I upload some of the research reports from the
right,
VCs firm and some of the industry trends and everything.
right.
and I post it and I ask questions. What's the emerging or a pattern that you can see, and then how it is useful for me. So that's another
Yeah.
thing that you could do as well.
Correct. And then adding on to that, scientific papers. Now,
Yeah.
you can basically look at scientific papers and the new technical research that is coming out, and then see if there's application. You can literally tell OpenAI to, hey, summarize this. Is the fundamentals of this? And now for example, there was an AI UX paper that came out that my designer wanted to look at, and then we kind of simplified it to say, oh, the new version of AI UXs look like this. So that's a competitive edge. So you can add scientific papers to it as well. So there's a lot of ways, but the fundamental of staying ahead is continuous iteration and continuous and having strong discipline and having a timetable for your team. So if on this day and every 4 weeks moving forward, you're going to do a market reevaluation, that day it has to happen. Because now
Right.
we don't have the issue of, oh, this is going to take 2 weeks. We have a sprint to plan. You can get it done in a day. So discipline is what's going to win in the end.
Okay. Thank you. So let's go to the next step now.
Okay. So moving really quickly on to fast hypothesis and prototyping. Um, Again, I will talk about first, as you can see, the slides is I talk about my woes first, and then I talk about how it can be made better. So what traditional product ideation involves is, again, a lot of battle scars in every meeting. You have these brainstorming sessions, and I'm sure some of you have gone through it, which is there's a room that is covered with sticky notes, and then you realize that, oh, the yellow sticky notes is making everything blend together. So you add the pinks and the greens and the blues just to, emphasize other things. And then it's a wall of things that you can't even read, but you do take a picture of it because you're so sure you're going to evaluate it in the next 2 weeks. And you never do, because you can't read other people's handwriting. There's one person who's been screaming the whole time and 4 people who haven't said a word in the whole meeting. So that is a typical brainstorming session. So it takes a lot of time and doesn't have the impact that we always hope it'll have. That everybody's going to put 100% of their gray cells into it, and we're going to come out with, like, we'll have discovered gravity when we come out of it or something similar. Never really happens. Again, coming back to it, at any given point, manually identifying user feedback, identifying pain points, and prioritizing them that aligns with the business and user needs never happens. Bias always gets infused, sometimes a lot of people don't even bring up critical things because they don't want to fight in the meeting. So, it's so dependent upon the personality types of the team that you have. Um, a lot of feature ideas is based on a lot of intuition and what the team member would specifically like. So, why are we building a feature why are we having a card-like interface versus a form-like interface? What is the difference? Why are we even doing it? And it's mostly because the team member likes a card-like interface. The usual feedback is it looks really clean. Does your user think it looks really clean? You don't know. So there has to be a kind of understanding as to what your user likes, which is never quite translated. And there is the wireframing and prototyping in itself becomes a minor sprint. You're going in, you're giving, like, you're doing, you brainstormed, and now your data dump goes to your design team. And now your design team doesn't have all the context of the brainstorming and the fighting, and now starts like designing in this vacuum. And then you go back and you iterate. So by the time all of this is done, I think the impact is so muted that it comes out to usually nothing. Um, so what AI can help do, I think, is remove bottlenecks and generate, like, structured and, most important, data-backed ideas. So that's kind of where we start with. So the goal when we're kind of using Gen AI in my world is to skip the brainstorming session altogether, or at least compress it from like about a couple of days to a few hours. I remember my engineering team used to ask me prior to Gen AI, they would ask me like, what do you guys do in a meeting room all day? If you guys take a meeting room, sales can't have calls, we can't have like our sprint, like retrospectives. You're just sitting in the room, sticking sticky notes everywhere. So, that's kind of what the opinion of product eventually became, that you guys just have meetings all day. So we're trying to get rid of that image by just skipping the brainstorming sessions altogether and start with something that can be really fundamental, which is problem solution trees. The goal of every brainstorming session is this: you want to create impactful problems, find them, rank them, understand which one's most important to your users, and come up with multiple solutions to it. There is not, I always tell my team, the first solution to your problem that you've come up with is usually wrong. You have to come up with multiple ones and then do a pro con, evaluate which one is valuable for your user, not you, because you're not using this product, your user is. So product teams usually used to manually do this. And what we can do now is, with so many tools available, you can auto-generate these problem solution trees. So you start with something really concrete already. So there are tools like Orbit AI that auto-generate these uh, problem solution trees. You don't have to subscribe to something new. You can use ChatGPT or Claude or whichever LLM that you want, feed in your data that you have from your user research and your feedback, and say, okay, generate problem solution trees for me and give me the priority, and rank them based on these important things that I care about. There are also tools like Fathom and Pensieve that turn research into like really actionable insights. I prefer starting with problem solution trees because it gives you a little bit of flexibility to be able to understand pros and cons instead of letting AI do everything. I like a little bit of human in the loop. But again, depending upon whatever situation you have, you can pick and choose. So basically, you can input your data, extract themes from AI, generate potential solutions, and prioritize them without as much as batting an eyelid. So that is where I usually start. And then always just remember that AI is not, you're not using AI to find the best idea. You're trying to find the top few ideas that you can test further and pick the best idea. Again, it's your user's feedback or not AI's feedback that counts. But this definitely helps narrow the scope.
True. Soumya, one of the questions that is asked, and I think it is relevant to this, is that, say,
Mhm.
for example, we are on an e-commerce, we have done a bit of a changes and everything, but the revenue is declining.
Right,
Now, it could also be a general market trend,
right,
or some of the UX I have done is wrong.
right.
So how do I find that problem and a solution tree for such a thing where it is not just what I have done, but it's a general market trend, and I might actually be going and complicating the UX or the features because I think it is something that I've done, whereas it is general market trend. So how do you find that problem solution tree for that?
I think the in this situation, how I would think
Yeah.
about it is less about the solution and still more about the problem. And you pointed out at the very right thing, that you don't like solving for the wrong problem, even if it's the right solution, it's still going to create a wrong outcome. So you're absolutely right. Maybe it's not the UX and you're complicating it and it makes things worse. So the first thing first is you have to validate with data on which problem it really is.
Mm.
And so, in fact, I would go back to the user research and start looking at churned customer data, like the customers that actually skipped and revenue declined. Which one of them bounced versus which one of them bought? What is the
Mm.
difference in the demographics of them? You can also do a very deep competitive analysis to see, is their revenue declining? You can look at online reviews of your competitors to see, are you getting similar feedback as like your competitors? Is there anything different? So again, I would go back to validating, is it UX? Because if it were UX, you would find it really quickly. There are tools available and really nice AI tools like Hotjar that you can deploy on your e-commerce site where you can, they have this really cool concept of rage clicks, which is like if people don't understand the UX, they start like going across the screen like crazy. So you would understand that it might be a UX problem. And it might not be, and it might be an amalgamation of the problem. Maybe it is a market trend and some amount of UX, and you can start fixing some of the UX to figure out to increase the revenue by a little bit, and then start going on to the market.
Understood.
So step one is validate the problem. Which one is it before you jump onto the solution?
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so now that we have our problem solution tree, so essentially visualize it as problem statement and multiple solution trees that go down. They're all options that you can kind of jump into. Now you can use AI to truly generate more solutions if you need to, refine the solutions that you already have, and kind of rank them with respect to each other and see which one comes out on top. And this is where I think a predominant amount of bias infuses during solutioning, where we're truly thinking about that, okay, we have a problem, here are our potential solutions, here is how we should solve, and here is how it should look like, and here is what the flow would look like. That is where bias usually seeps in. So I think using just any LLM to say, here is my problem, here is my user type, here is what I'm trying to solve for. What does a structured product idea look like? What does the flow look like? And, having all of these options and have AI come up with them gives you a really good diversity of potential solutions that you can validate. You can use DALL-E, Midjourney. Now you have V0 and Bolt and Lovable and, every tool out there. And I think to be able to conceptualize your feature, I think to be able to create lo-fi wireframes, you have something called UIZard where you can literally prompt it and it creates your lo-fi wireframe. So you don't even need a lot of design help here, where you can just start actually just creating your flows. And then definitely look at Notion AI, Perplexity, even just ChatGPT to summarize market trends and understand like what your market really wants. The reason why I think infusing what your market is used to in solutioning right here is important, because if your user is used to buying a certain way, it's very unlikely they will switch. So for example, like if I'm building a CRM and my user is used to paying by seat, and that's a part of like the feature, they would not switch to a yearly subscription and pay a standard price. They want a seat-based pricing. So there's some things your market is already used to in terms of solutioning. You can't veer very much away from that. So again, this is something up to you. You should tag your solution as this is novel. Nobody has done this before. So you have a lot more flexibility with it. But if I call it a Me Too feature, that because a competitor has it, you also need to have it and it's standard for your industry. Don't veer too much away from what is standard. So you can use AI to figure out, hey, what is standard? What can I tweak a little to make this have an aha to it as opposed to other competitors? So that also gets added to the feature brainstorming. And then you can compare your AI ideas with successful industry trends. You can see like what the industry, how it's evolving, what it has done nicely before, and infuse that into your feature brainstorming as well. And I can guarantee you all of this takes 2 to 3 hours at max in a day. So you can really get a lot of information out of this really quickly. So the one thing that I would like to add to this is you need to run multiple AI brainstorming sessions. Don't just stick to one, because you, over a period of time, as you talk to your colleagues, as you talk to your team, you will get a little more context that you might want to infuse. So run this a few times before you really get the hang of it. And then try to add diversity of angles to the same problem. So think about it. If you have multiple user personas that a lot of companies tend to, try to look at it from the perspective of different personas so that you come up with a singular solution that fits a lot of people. So look at it from the perspective of personas, look at it from the perspective of budget, how much can people actually spend, and evaluate it in terms of like different budget if you're trying to monetize it. So try to look at it from different angles and come up with a solution that fits most of your use cases. Okay. I've already talked about this previously. I will just jump into it for a second. Instant wireframes and prototypes. Now, assuming you've got your solution in place, something that you like, you've validated it, ranked it. And by validated, I mean still synthetic UI. You haven't gone to users yet, but you have got some idea to say, okay, I think this one has a really high likelihood of working. Unless my users shoot it down, I have strong conviction that this one is going to work. So now you start going into wireframes and prototyping. And in this, the beauty of this is you just need your designer to make a couple of Figmas, like literally two, and not one thing more, just to align with your style guide. I've already talked about Figma has its own AI. There are tools like V0 and Bolt and Lovable, and you put it on Google and there will be 80 more that pop up. And literally, they design it beautifully. Like you will not be able to tell that this has not been designed by a designer. It is, and you can chat with it. It's an agentic approach. You can say, hey, make this button round and not square, and you can do all the fun stuff with it. And it builds beautiful UXs. You can build that. If you're just focused on wireframes, which is lo-fi wireframes, you can go to tools like UiZard, but it is so quick to build something to put in front of users without wasting time of engineers, because a lot of the times to get a quote unquote MVP for users to test, either your designer would take 8 days, 20 days to build a Figma with every possible use case, and it would become this labyrinth of different wireframes, all were connected through hotspots, and it would be a mess. Either you show those to users, or you would have to get engineering intervention to be able to build something so you can put it in front of the users. There was no third option. And now with this, you don't need intervention from either. You prompt a lovable thing. It has a connected front end that you can put in front of your users and say, hey, what do you think? Do you like this? Do you hate it? You're about it. And a lot of responses sometimes come but you can truly create this wonderful way of testing what your actual product would look like. No variations at all. So it's actually godsend, this part, because now I can create an entire prototype in under 2.5 hours, and I did that literally a week ago when I was trying to test a new feature, and that's all you need. So yeah, rapid iteration. Also, the one really cool thing that I'll talk about, which happened about a few days ago, a lot of our users didn't like. I had like back-to-back user interviews, and a lot of our users didn't understand like a transition from one step to another. And I literally prompted on Lovable and updated it, and I was able to run the same update with the same users in the same day and say, is this better? So that's how quick prototyping can happen with Gen AI. Okay, now that you've got your this data available, the one thing that always adds to it and helps with it is looking at market data previously, looking at product launches that were successful in your vertical, and sometimes it can be even parallel if you have a very similar kind of, if you're building the same thing for a different user versus somebody else, you can look at some adjacent markets as well. But looking at past product launches, comparing past ideas, what worked, what didn't work, what were successful features, what failed, adding that context to while you're creating these features can be very helpful. So AI can run trend analysis for you and can say, okay, what failed, what was successful. So if you're running a finance app, you can say, tell me about all the finance apps that, failed in the past 5 years or did really well in the past 5 years. You have OpenAI's deep research now that can really go through everything and look at actual like TechCrunch articles and things like that and tell you why, pinpoint why something failed and why something was successful. So you're essentially failure proofing your feature or your solution, looking at past market data. So I think adding this is really valuable. So, and just as an example, Tesla's like autopilot UX was iterated based on AI-driven usability testing, and they use this real-world feedback loop, saying like what failed earlier, and then updating that. So again, you can run deep research, but again, you've got Perplexity that can scan case studies and competitors, which is very valuable. There are a lot of like social sentiment analysis, which I think in this case might be valuable. A lot of Quoras and Reddits, people talk about industries and people talk about what didn't work and what really worked. So getting that information together can really work. So you're like not just building off gut instinct, you're actually failure proofing your feature, like you're mitigating risk upfront, which can be really valuable as well. So again, how to do it right? Instead of debating ideas, let AI create an unbiased worldview for yourself first before you start debating. Test AI products against the past product successes and the past, more importantly, past failures. Failure proof, like think about it as instead of making sure that it succeeds, you have to make sure it doesn't fail. That actually works a little better, in my opinion. And use AI to rapidly prototype UI layouts. Like this, I think, is the one thing that will cut down time the most. And then definitely validate your AI generated features through trend analysis. You're adding a certain level of real world data to it before you go out to actual users.
Yeah. Soumya, when we talk about brainstorming with Gen AI tools, LLM tools, or even creating prototypes, is there a risk of my competitor also doing the same thing? So there is a conflict there, and also is there a risk of getting a generic feature set because it is trained with a certain kind of a biased data, and then so that is what it is going to output it. So is there a risk of that, and how do you mitigate that?
So let's start with the second question first. That is there a risk of a generic data set? Yes. And that is why I talked about you have to give the AI as much context
Mm.
about your business because that is your competitive advantage. The context for it to be able to be as nuanced as you need it to be. So make sure that you make the AI smart enough to keep up with you first before you start asking it questions because nobody knows your business better than you. So that is how you make sure that the features are not generic and very specific. That is why I talked about that we need to know our user personas like the back of our hand. We need to give them as much information about our user personas, as much information about what we've built, how we've built support tickets, feedback, NPS scores. The smarter we make it, the better our outcomes will be. And then in terms of building wireframes that our competitors might also, I think that is why the best practice is have your designer build the critical flows. You
Mm.
don't have to build everything because you have to like at that point, that is the beauty of human creativity. What we're trying to um, remove is the grunt work that just we created the feature, but because we want to show the login page and we want to show like the nav bar and we want to show everything, the designer has to work 4 times as hard because all the extra stuff, also needs to be built. But if you get your designer to build the core feature, which is essentially 4 Figma like connections, then Lovable and everything else can add to all the extra stuff. And then you can iterate on it and say, oh, what can be an issue? Can we make this better? So you can definitely do that. But I think the goal is how do we retain creativity and get rid of all the manual grunt work? So that's where I think that's how ideally these prototyping tools should be used. Do not replace it in place of creativity. And it's a very fine line for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I'm keeping my eyes on the time as well. We have
Yes.
6 more minutes, so let's go into the market validation.
Perfect. Market validation is exactly what it is. We kind of go into building prototypes or MVPs that usually take months. And I've already talked about Lovable can take like days. Running focus groups are extremely costly. Conduct A/B tests. I know we all in product talk about A/B tests. I personally think it's a hoax because you need a lot of significant traffic for it to be statistically significant, and on different days. So, conducting A/B tests, like we do it, but no outcome. And, we manually identify a lot of competitive trends. A lot of things fall through the cracks, or we don't do it as often because it takes so much time. So for market validation, AI can cut out a lot of this extra work that we're doing. And we start with, for example, what I love doing is the Wizard of Oz testing. How much can you fake a feature before coding it to be able to get real market feedback? And by faking a feature, I mean what I talked about, Lovable. Can you just create a front end and show it to your user? And of course, you don't have to tell the user that the feature is completely built or anything. You just say, hey, this is a test MVP. Do you want to check it out? But creating a front end that looks real, even though it's manually operated, but showing it to the user to see how they like it, um, is a very common way. And that's where Lovable comes in. You can use ads and a lot of ad copies to be able to see if people are biting on the value of the feature. So I have run a lot of test Google ads and have people join the waitlist for a new feature and see, or a new product, and see if that works. You can create, like, if a video demo, which AI allows you to build. Just as an example, Dropbox's first MVP was like a very simple video, and they put it out there to see how many people were interested in it. So there's a lot of ways to engage, your user before you actually start building the feature, because you're making sure that, you're not going to fail at it, because it's a lot of heartache if you spend so much time and it results to nothing. So the goal is, if it's not working, I will kill the idea early. Like, the fail fast mentality in product is what makes products win. So Wizard of Oz testing helps you fail fast. I'd rather get to a no if I've spent 2 days on a lovable prototype than when engineering has gotten involved, built out the whole feature, and then no one uses it. AI generated MVPs, build in days, not months. I've already talked about that. As much as you can use tools like Lovable and V0 to be able to create these quick front-end MVPs, actually test it without, as much as you can not use engineering resources, the better it will be. Because the one thing that it helps with is it gives engineering back time to help with, that backlog of all those bugs and all those technical changes and all that you had to. I remember one of our engineering team had spent 6 months not fixing the database concurrency issue because we just kept giving them these MVPs. So, they can actually take on technical debt, which is real, while you're off doing this. So you're taking load off of engineering and actually building this yourself. So you can do this in days. You can test it out. There are a lot of tools available, from UiZard to Tally to Webflow to, you name it. You just have to search it on Google and you will find how to build a quick MVP. And yeah, the real-time market sentiment analysis, I think, is going to be extremely valuable. You can quickly pull user discussions from Reddit, Twitter. You can look on, key themes for market sentiment analysis. Again, there are tools here, from Perplexity to Google Trends to Crimson Hexagon. You can look at a lot of them and kind of analyze what conversations are happening about either your product, your industry, trends, features similar to your product, and kind of figure out where opportunities really are. So how to do it right? Try to build as many AI MVPs as you can. Fake it before you make it. Try to use your Wizard of Oz testing as much as possible. Try to pre-sell products based on landing pages or with the before committing resources, and try to continuously gauge the market. If you are lucky enough that people are talking about you or your industry on social media, please leverage it using AI, because there is no better time to be able to gather that information. Um, Before I end this, just a couple of things. You can speed up validation with AI, but you have to continuously remind yourself that this is not a replacement for critical thinking. At the end of the day, the human and humans' decision making is in the driver's seat. AI is just to support. As much as you can build your data pipeline with structured input, the better the outputs would be. And the last thing is, do not replace human testing with AI. It is very, very, it's like the forbidden fruit. You really want to do it, don't do it. Humans can get really good feedback. So final takeaways, um, AI can speed up research, accelerate design, faster validation. When you go back today, the first thing you do is look at your data pipeline, look at how much data you can collect and how much data, you can actually give to AI. Find one feature that your users really, really want, one problem that they really want solved, and try creating that MVP. And I can guarantee you, you will be able to do all these three things within the week. Perfect. So that is it.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya. I think if there is one thing that you should take away, which is mentioned as the final takeaway here, is that use AI as a co-pilot, not as an autopilot. Thank you, Soumya, for sharing whatever knowledge that you have and the expertise here. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the participants. We hope you found this session insightful. If you have any further questions, you can continue the discussion by connecting with us. Have a great day. Thank you so much.